So one of those things that I have enjoyed and learned about in my crown era is that my wisdom is on point and my intuition is on point when I have a clear vessel. So in this video, I want to talk about kind of like the three main things that I know that have hindered my intuition and really doused it where I could not hear from my higher self, from God, from infinite intelligence. And the first one was grief. When I was grieving my parents, they died within less than a year apart from each other, year and a half ish, so to speak. And I was still in my 30s. And that grief took me and catapulted me into not wanting to hear anything from God, anything from infinite source. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to be obedient. I was in complete disarray and depression. And that really hindered my ability to just even settle in my nervous system, because if your nervous system is not completely settled and you're not clear and clean and calm, it's very difficult for your intuition to drop in those whispers. And so grief really took me out. And I understand that working with my other clients throughout the years, that grief really doesn't allow you to hear from your heart space, which is part of your intuition, because your heart is so broken and you feel so broken that you feel disconnected from anything and everything. So if you are in grief, the main thing that I invite you to do is definitely talk to somebody. Write out whatever you can in a journal, release that grief, and know that your love, the grief is just the absence of the love of the person or the thing that's there. But once you understand and have a spiritual, I ain't gonna say awakening, but spiritual sense in some way or some and somehow, that you will understand that you only grieve because you love, and then you hold on to the love versus the grief of the loss of that love. So, grief, that's the first one. The second one is self doubt and confusion. When you have, which leads me into betrayal. So, it's really betrayal. Let's say that. So, when you betray yourself or somebody else betrays you, you go into a spiral of self doubt and you just don't understand. You're totally confused. You search your mind and your heart and your soul, and you try to figure out where you missed the mark. And you feel at some point that it couldn't have been you, it had to be them, meaning that your intuition failed you or you didn't listen to your intuition at all. So, confusion, betrayal from yourself, and betraying yourself, as well as having somebody betray you, will provide self-doubt. And self-doubt, you won't be able to listen to your intuition. Your intuition will be trying to knock you upside the head and you still will not believe what is going on. And that's a hard one to deal with, especially when you're in relationships, especially when you know back in the mind, you know something is off and you just you know, turn a blind eye, as they say. You say, "No, that can't be true." You have dreams about certain things, and you were like, "That can't be true. That was just a dream." And then when it manifests or when it really hits you in your face that your intuition was telling you something about betrayal and you didn't believe it, that's the trauma that brings in your intuition. And then you kind of hate yourself, and that self-doubt just becomes more solidified until you learned how to forgive yourself and have faith in infinite intelligence, divine love, and have more self-love within yourself. So forgiveness is, I believe, one of the primary ways that you release confusion, betrayal, and self-doubt. One of the last things that I know that will hinder, or trauma, the part of the trauma that will hinder your intuition, is fear. When your fear is overactive in a particular situation, especially when you're thinking about the future, the ifs, the identifying the fears versus identifying the faith. So you keep identifying fears of the future, and that fear blocks your intuition. Your intuition is trying to bring you faith and strength and possibilities, and then your mind, your ego, and just the fears brings you everything else, all about it brings back trauma, it brings back doubt, it brings back the other two things that I was talking about, confusion, whereas intuition will bring you back clarity and peace and joy. So fear is another part of trauma, especially when it's a large fear of that's crippling to the soul, crippling to your nervous system where you unable to make decisions, then that is one of the other traumas that can just hinder your intuition. So, how do you overcome these things? You may be asking. You say, Coach Hunt, how do you overcome these things? Well, I believe the first thing you have to do is just to have more self love. I know you like self love. Why? Why? Well, self love, remember, self is the soul evolving life force, and love is ultimately all things and everything. So you have to forgive yourself, but first you have to love yourself enough to forgive yourself and to want to have a relationship back with your intuition, with your higher self, with God, without any blame or shame or worries that things are not going to happen exactly the way you want it versus happening for the best interest of you and the best interest for everybody around you. We are so limited in our mind, we as humans, that's what I'm saying. We are so limited in our minds that sometimes cannot see the bigger picture. Well, 100%, we cannot see the bigger picture. We can think we see in the bigger picture, but if we keep zooming out and zooming out and zooming out, the bigger picture really means nothing in this little mindset. But the bigger picture for your life and how you want it to unfold may not be the best direction for you to get all the particular goals and settings that you want. Your goal could be here, but your destiny could be over here. And you want to learn how to bridge those things. So, self love and forgiveness is one of the main points of how to release trauma. Now, when you're in grief, you have to have the ability. I'm not a therapist. I work with many therapists, and I've dealt with other people in grief counseling to a certain degree. But grief is one of those things, I'm going to say, that takes time, and it takes a mindset of knowing that grief will always be with you to a certain degree. But I believe that grief just reminds you how much love you have. When you love someone super deep, the grief is just the same. It's like the polarities of it, but it's not the opposite of it. It's just a polarities of what's been missing. And so, another thing that you can do to strengthen your intuition is to continue to ask for support. Just ask for support from your spiritual team, from your higher self, from God, from divine love, from Allah, whomever that higher source is for you, and find a ritual or meditation practice that you like, that you enjoy, and you connect to from your soul self that brings you into a conversation with that particular entity for yourself. And there's many ways that you can do that. You can find that on my channel. You can write, you can read, you can sing, you can draw, you can color, you can just listen to music, you can go out in nature. There's like prefala, a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. And yeah, so that's all I have for today, you guys. I love you guys so much. It's Coach Hunt. Go ahead and subscribe. If you have you need any clarity, put it in the comments. If you have any other ways that you know how you connect to your intuition, or you think you have an intuition block, put that in the comments. I love to help workshop that through with you. And I love you guys so much. I have your greatest interest at heart. Bye.